So the Bitcoin crash is real. In a previous video, I talked about how regulation could come in and seriously affect the cryptocurrency market. Since the recording of that video, Bitcoin is down over 40%, but does this warrant a good buying opportunity with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency as a whole? Or on the other hand, has the worst yet to come and will Bitcoin continue crashing to the downside? In this video, I'm going to give you some very scary concerns I have with Bitcoin, but also leave you with some bullish sentiment when it comes to buying this cryptocurrency at its current levels. But before we move on, remember this is not financial advice. I'm just a guy who currently possesses a beard talking about finance and stocks on YouTube. All these videos are my personal opinions and thoughts, and you should do your own due diligence before you make any investment decision. But if you are looking for a broker and you want to buy and sell cryptocurrency, check out eTORO down on the pinned comment. Sign up deposit, make a trade via the link on the pinned comment, and you get lifetime access to the LWT eTORO chat room. Now, to be very clear here, this video is probably going to come off more bearish than bullish, but I want to make something very, very clear, which I have reiterated in my previous cryptocurrency videos. I am a big fan of blockchain technology, and I do think that blockchain technology is the future. But will that blockchain be Bitcoin? Will it be Ethereum? Will it be Dogecoin or even Cumrocket or whatever the hell that's about? But which cryptocurrency or blockchain will be the future? All I know is at some point a cryptocurrency will be adopted worldwide and blockchain technology will be the future. But that said, we could still be decades, even centuries away from that future. And it might sound really skeptical that I think blockchain technology will be the future in, say, 100, 200 years when we're all living in spaceships. But this brings me on to my first real concern, and that is government. In a previous video, I talked about regulation coming into the cryptocurrency market because countries do not want to lose their sovereign currency. I was really shocked that China sort of led the way on this, and I do think the US will adopt this more in the future as they talk about taxing cryptocurrency itself, and I'll come on to that in a second. But one thing we do know is countries are not willing, as it stands, to give up their sovereign currency. Unless you're El Salvador, and again, I'll come on to that in just a second. But think about it, why do governments not want cryptocurrency? Well, governments right now, they have all the power, and as we know from politics and corporate institutions, it's all about power. Right now, if we use the US as an example, they can print as much US dollar as they want to help save the economy in a Miley Cyrus situation. Now, if the US had two currencies, for example, like Bitcoin and the US dollar, then the US really has diluted its own power, and they don't want that to happen. Governments around the world, especially in major economies, will want to keep their currency because it's a lifeline for the governments to stay in power. Now, I'm not saying we should all jump up and revolute against the US dollar, but you can understand that this is why governments really want to regulate offshore assets and especially cryptocurrency in the coming years. And I'm going to throw my hat in the ring here and do the unpopular thing. I think the US could really hyper-tax Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies to save people going offshore, and they will try and paint themselves as the glorious figures, the hero of the movie, by saying that Bitcoin is high risk, it's an offshore jurisdiction, and it is unregulated, and if you lose all your money, well then you're shit out of luck. We're doing this regulation to help you, the retail investor, from making a stupid decision in buying a very high-risk offshore asset. And let's be honest, this is very possible when it comes to any big Western government. They don't really care about you and me, all they care about is keeping power and control. And after all, that's one of the biggest pros in terms of blockchain, is having a decentralized currency that doesn't have an affiliation to any one government. Now, sticking with the US because it is the world's largest economy and talking about tax, currently, if you have over 10,000 US dollars in cryptocurrency, you need to declare it in your tax returns. I do think that figure will massively come down, and it's a real starting point for the US government and the IRS to sort of track who holds cryptocurrency as an asset. Now, when you sell Bitcoin or any cryptocurrency, you need to declare it and you will be eligible to capital gains tax. But it's not over there. If you sold Bitcoin and bought Ethereum, for example, guess what? You need to declare it and pay capital gains tax. If you then sell that Ethereum to buy Bitcoin again, yes, you have to pay capital gains tax. And I think this is really overlooked because over the last couple of years, I've seen a lot of people thinking they don't have to pay tax on cryptocurrency, and it's an absolute myth. And then we throw in Biden's capital gains tax increases of up to 39%. We can see that this capital gains tax is going to really eat into those profits, especially into the bigger holders of Bitcoin. And as we know from markets in general, the whales are the ones who really dictate the price. Myself and you selling a whole house to buy 2 Bitcoin is really irrelevant, because you've got people like Tesla or Elon Musk, or even your average millionaire just going out and buying a couple of hundred Bitcoin just for fun, and then they can sell at any point, which could really affect the share price to the downside if they all cashed in right now so that they pay the lower capital gains tax left by the Trump administration. And I think that's a serious possibility, and it's a serious possibility also with the stock market, because if this capital gains increase to 39% goes through and goes ahead, a lot of people will look at cashing out. And the people who are cashing out are the people who are in the higher bracket, because this tax applies to anybody who has over $1 million in income, and that means that me and you could be left back holding. Now, the way historically people have got around this capital gains tax is by putting their stock investments into things like an ISA if you're from the UK, putting it into a 401k if you're from the US, and various other pension or saving platforms and products where you can sort of mitigate that tax risk and defer it until you actually come into drawdown of this asset. Now, I'm not going to pretend I'm a 401k tax expert in America, but if you're from the UK, I know it's pretty hard to hold cryptocurrency into any pension. Therefore, you can only hold it as a direct asset, and therefore you have to pay tax on your earnings as it goes by. And again, that could be massive amounts of money, and especially if they do go ahead and tax it as a offshore asset, because that could even be more than 39%, but that's a discussion for another day. Now, another bearish signal more for Bitcoin alone is if we look on the chart. Any decent trader will tell you the very, very fearful head and shoulders pattern. If you don't know what this is, basically it's imagine a person on the screen. You go up, you have their left shoulder, you then go over their head, and then you sort of complete the right shoulder, and then the stock usually comes all the way down to their waistline. It's a very bearish pattern, and Bitcoin is unfortunately forming one. I think this is something that is genuinely overlooked in terms of the pattern alone, and people should be very careful, again, if you're looking at buying and selling Bitcoin in the short term. Throw in if this pattern does come into fruition and we break that 27,000 US dollar mark, that would mean that every single person who bought Bitcoin in 2021 would now be red on their trade. For me personally, I think that's a very scary statistic, because we have seen the hype come in with cryptocurrencies, especially at the beginning of the year. And I think as people sort of move away from the hype of Bitcoin, some of them people have now moved into meme stocks, some of them have just completely disappeared, and they are now back at their normal everyday jobs because the dream of becoming a multi-millionaire from investing has disappeared. I think the chart and the volume really does scare me on Bitcoin itself, and you can sort of do this across most cryptocurrencies. Remember that fear and optimism drive the market more so than any fundamentals. Right now, people are sort of ditching Bitcoin, and every news article is quite fearful. There's not too many in terms of positive news when it comes to Bitcoin as a cryptocurrency. Now, it might sound all doom and gloom on Bitcoin itself, but I do sort of have a plan and thesis on Bitcoin, and if you want to see what that is, you need to sign up on Patreon via the link in the description. There's some cool perks there, like our WhatsApp group. Go check it out if you're interested. But for now, let's move on with another bearish sign when it comes to buying and selling Bitcoin. Now, we can't talk about cryptocurrency and Bitcoin without mentioning Elon Musk and Tesla. Flip a coin on whether it's going to be a good day for Bitcoin via Elon's tweets or a bad day. But one thing's for sure lately is Elon is not really feeling Bitcoin. It consumes a lot of power, and Tesla's whole goal, for example, is to go more green. And the fact that they actually went out and bought Bitcoin without realizing how much energy it consumes seems like a bit of a mismatch in terms of company values. Now, the big question and fear here is what happens if Tesla did indeed sell its Bitcoin? We don't know for sure until their next quarterly reports, but Tesla is coming close to its entry point, and I think given the news, it's something we can't fully rule out. Personally, for me, I think it'd be suicide if Tesla did this, because Tesla in itself is sort of a bit of a hype. And if they did sell Bitcoin, they're going to lose a lot of their following. So it's a bit of a sticky situation for Elon and Tesla, and I don't know how that's going to play out, but I am very watching eagerly on the sidelines with Popcoin. Not Popcoin, Popcorn. maybe we should make a cryptocurrency called Popcoin. Would you buy that coin? Let me know down in the comments. Now, going on what we've said so far, it's obviously just the bear case. But what about the bullish sentiment? What about Bitcoin being discounted at its current value and maybe rallying to the upside? Now, if you do believe in cryptocurrency and more so Bitcoin, this could be a good entry point. And I'm saying could because it is a very volatile ticker. And as long as you don't dive into any investment, whether it be a stock or cryptocurrency, with everything you have and leverage, you can have a decent entry point in this currency, because I do think you will get lower. I do think you will get higher at some point, but it's all about you individually. So if you are bullish on Bitcoin, it could represent a good entry point for you. And if you are bullish, again, fair play to you. But the biggest news recently is El Salvador talking about making it a legal currency and tender in its nation. Now, of course, El Salvador is not China or the US or even the UK or Europe, but it is a start. If this does happen, it could sort of set a chain of events with countries that have high mega inflation and are not really politically sound, but they could also adopt a third-party currency, and it could also potentially become a free tax haven for cryptocurrencies. But that is actual speculation, but I can see it playing out that way. We've seen certain offshore jurisdictions pop up over the last 50 years and be sort of tax havens for different nationalities and different currencies, so why not one for crypto? El Salvador could just be the start. Again, it's not really massive news, but I do think it could be a start if it happens. The downside of this, though, is El Salvador itself. Let's be honest, it's not exactly the #1 source when it comes to trustworthiness in terms of the government. For me, though, the biggest bullish thing that could happen with Bitcoin right now is more companies, more legitimate companies like your McDonald's, your Amazons, adopt Bitcoin as a terms of payment and maybe even invest in it itself. The US dollar is weakening fast, and I can see Bitcoin being one of the favorites of choice when it comes to diversifying in terms of a currency. After all, this is exactly what Tesla wanted to prove with their point of buying Bitcoin, but to be honest, I was expecting a lot more companies to dive in and copy Tesla in terms of buying Bitcoin and holding it as an asset. If this does happen, and I think it actually could at some point, I think this could bring back the hype into cryptocurrencies and push Bitcoin to the upside. So what are my thoughts and thesis when it comes to buying Bitcoin as it stands right now? Well, you've probably guessed, summing up all the points here, I'm more of a bear than I am a bull at its current price. And that is quite frankly because I think I could buy it a lot lower. But that said, I might never buy it at all. The biggest concern for me, which I haven't yet mentioned in the video, so big pat on the back to those who are watching this far, is the transactions. I watched a video recently with Graham Stephan, and if you know Graham, you should definitely go and sign up to him. If you're interested in finance, I'm pretty sure you know this dude. But he was talking about the transactions waiting time, and it really shocked me. Bitcoin, the way it works is when you do a transaction, it relies on its miners to do a calculation, and this then depends on time, on how quick that transaction is completed from when you buy and sell a product. And this is one of the reasons why you can't go into Walmart and buy milk, because when you scan your Bitcoin credit card, you could be sat there for up to hours really waiting for this calculation to be done so you can walk out with your milk. Now, this represents two problems. The first problem is it all comes down to fees. The higher you're willing to pay in fees, the quicker your calculation is prioritized. So for in the milk instance, you're going to be at the very back of the queue, and it could take you a hell of a long time to actually get this transaction completed. Now, I want to be clear here, it is much faster than the 3 to 7 days if you're international from sending money from one bank to another. Bitcoin is definitely faster, but there are faster cryptocurrencies out there. Some of them are even pretty much instantaneous, but Bitcoin as it stands is quite slow unless you're willing to pay crazy fees. And this brings me on to the second worry with transactions, which is really Bitcoin's price. If you think about it, you go into Walmart and you want to buy some milk. Let's say the milk is $1. I have no idea what the price of milk is in America right now. With inflation, it could be more like $10 a liter, but let's just say it's $1. You go in and buy it with your Bitcoin credit card, and you're sat there waiting for 10-15 minutes for it to be processed. As we know, in them 10-15 minutes, Elon Musk could tweet, or Bitcoin could just go up, it could go down, we don't know. But what that means is somewhere the retailer or the buyer is losing. One of them has to lose on the price. It's very rarely going to stay exactly the same price throughout this whole transaction, so one of them is going to lose and sell. But as a retailer standpoint, it's going to be every single customer. And this is why retailers, I do not think, will adopt Bitcoin ever as a term of payment in a shop, unless it narrows this down and becomes much faster and also fixes its transaction fees. And there's even more evidence of this. If we go back 5 years ago, 2016, Bitcoin transactions are pretty much the same as they are right now. We did see a spike in the middle a couple of years ago, but not that much, like a 50% spike, I think it was, in transactions, but now we are all the way back down to what it was 5 years ago. Now think about 5 years of technology, how much things have advanced. I mean, look at SpaceX. They're literally sending people to the International Space Station, where 5 years ago, I mean, there's just a meme somewhere of Elon Musk with maracas. But I think that might be more than 5 years ago. But you're getting my point. Retailers will not want to take this risk, and more importantly, people themselves will not want to wait for the transaction to happen. So I think the transactions really need to come down on Bitcoin itself to have a shout at becoming a worldwide currency. Now, if I had to put my head on the chopping block, and I know I shouldn't do this, where will Bitcoin be at the end of the year? I don't want to say exactly at the end of the year, but I do think Bitcoin could seriously see the low teens in terms of price. I think it could hit 13, 15,000 US dollars a single coin. And the reason I'm going that low is everything I've told you so far in the video. It's quite concerning, but it could also be completely wrong. I'd love to know your thoughts on where you think Bitcoin will reach. What will the lowest point this year be? And will it go to the moon? Let me know your price predictions down in the comments. The code word for this video is COMROCKET, and I can't believe that's an actual cryptocurrency. It just shows you how crazy this space is. That's it from me. Invest very safe out there, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Peace.